Alright, welcome to today's Tech Talk Tuesday, and for today's video is the first segment on a series of videos we're going to be doing on the dash of your E-body Mopars. So this dash came out of my 72 Dodge Challenger, and today's video we're going to go over how you remove this from your car as well as how you disassemble it and get the dash pad off. Now these dashes, what's really nice is they come out pretty much self-contained, wiring harnesses and all, and it doesn't take that much effort to remove them. This one took me 2 hours start to finish. I did it by myself. I don't recommend you do it by yourself. I definitely recommend you have somebody else there with you to help actually lift it out of the car, because this is definitely quite heavy. I was feeling ambitious and there was no one else around to help at the time, so I went ahead and just pulled it out myself. So that said, the first step you got to do to remove the dash is to pull the steering column. Now you don't actually have to remove the steering column completely from the car. You can just lay it down on the seat, and it's really simple to do. It's really only 5 bolts and a roll pin to take the steering column out, as well as disconnect the wiring harnesses. So there are 2 nuts that secure the steering column to the dash and the inner structure of the car, and those are right here within the right where it mounts to the dash. And then there are 3 bolts that attach the steering column to the firewall that you'll need to remove. And then if you want to actually remove the entire steering column from the car instead of just disconnecting and having it laying on the seat, you need to drive out the roll pin that's on the steering column under the hood next to the steering box. And that's it. The steering column comes out and it's easy. You're ready to go and start working on pulling the dash out. So let's go ahead, we'll turn this dash around and let you see what is needed to disconnect to remove it from the car. Alright, so as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on back here on the back side of the dash, but the nice thing is it's all self-contained. So this dash, of course, is 50 years old, and it was old when we put it back in the car 20 years ago. And we're getting ready to do a complete overhaul on the dash. I've got a brand new wiring harness coming that'll be here in a couple of days. And not that there's anything wrong with this wiring harness, it's just almost 50 years old, and it's probably a good idea to go ahead and put a new wiring harness in. The wires are getting stiffer with the insulation and stuff, and it's probably just smart to put a new harness in. And then also the dash pad itself, when we restored this car 20 years ago, I didn't have the funds to send the dash pad out to a company like Just Dashes to have them restore the dash, so I put a cheap dash cover on it to simulate the looks of the factory dash pad that covered up all the cracks and stuff. But it's definitely time to go ahead and put a new dash pad on this dash, make the car look that much fresher. And then also we've got something special in the works on the instrument cluster, so stay tuned for that. That's what I'm really excited about, and that's what really prompted this change. So if you notice, there's a few wires that are dangling around here, and you'll need to disconnect some things before you go ahead and just pull the dash out. On the passenger side, you'll need to disconnect the heater harness as well as the door jamb switch for the dome light. And you come over onto the driver's side, you have a little bit more to disconnect. You have to disconnect the dimmer switch from the floor. You need to disconnect the door jamb switch for the dome light. And you also need to disconnect the rear tail light harness. So nothing too bad, just make sure you do that, otherwise you damage your harness if you're not intending on replacing it. And then as far as the dash harness goes, from disconnecting the fuse box from the firewall, it's super easy. There are 2 giant Phillips head screws, one on each side, attach to the firewall, disconnect those, and then of course under the hood you'll need to unplug all the wiring harnesses, so that way you can go ahead and just pull that off of the firewall. And that's most of what you need to do from an electrical standpoint. And then you also have what your vent cables. They're bolted usually to the dash, so you need to disconnect those. And I believe that is just about it that you need from an electrical standpoint to pull the dash out. After that, it's just 6 bolts and the dash is out. So there are 4 bolts, which you can't really see here, but they're in the top, right down on the top of the dash where the defroster vents are. And you go ahead and you pull those 4 bolts out. That keeps the dash from tilting. And then there are 2 bolts, one on each side, that keep it mounted in place. And you pull those and then it'll slide right on out. And the dash definitely is not light. Like I said earlier, I did it by myself removing it. but you're probably gonna want to get a friend to help you out. That way you don't risk damaging anything. I was fortunate and didn't, but I probably could have, and it definitely wasn't the smartest decision. But that's neither here nor there. Luckily, everything worked out. The dash is out, didn't damage anything, and now we can go ahead and start tearing into it. All right, I forgot to mention you also need to remove some of the interior panels as well to just make it easier to pull the dash out. You need to pull the side sills out so you can pull the kick panels out so you can get to those two retaining bolts, one on each side, that hold the dash frame in place. You also need to go ahead and pull the A-pillar moldings out so that way that you don't risk damaging them when you pull the dash out. Other than that, that's about everything you need to pull the dash out of the car. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is remove the stereo. It's only held in with a couple of bolts, so we'll go ahead and get those removed. All right, screws being a little stubborn, but that's all right. So next, as you can see, we've got a lot more room to work here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and pull the dash harness out. So we just gotta disconnect everything, and it's not too bad, just plug and play for the most part. And yeah, let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so now we just got these last two here to remove off the alt gauge, and the harness will be free. Let me go get a wrench and get those taken care of. All right, and that's how you remove the old stock harness. So like I said, most of this harness, it's pretty grungy looking. I mean, it is nearly 50 years old, so it's definitely due. So the new one, like I said, will be here next week. So next what we'll go ahead and do is we need to pull the instrument cluster out and then separate the dash pad from the dash frame. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, so pulling the instrument cluster out is pretty straightforward. It's just a series of screws. So we'll go ahead and take those all out and get this instrument cluster out. So first you gotta start with the light bar though. Get that taken out. Oh, it should also be noted, I forgot earlier, when you're getting ready to take the dash out of the car, you also need to disconnect your heater control cables. I disconnected mine from the heater control module itself. That way I left the cables in the car with the heater box. You can do either way, but I just made it easier for me to get the dash out of the car by leaving the heater cables in the car. All right, so now you can see we've got some access to more screws. Let's go ahead and get all the screws removed that we've got left. Now we've got the gauges exposed. We can go ahead, get those screws removed, and pull the gauges on out. All right, now the instrument cluster's out. So now it's a lot easier to access these nuts here to go ahead and separate the dash pad from the dash frame. So there's a bunch of these nuts on this end and that end. We'll go ahead and get these pulled out. We'll flip it around, pull the others out. They are, looks like a 3/8 nut. So let's go ahead and get those removed. All right, looks like a couple of them. I'm gonna need to get some other extensions and stuff to get to them, but they're not too bad. They're just up underneath here. Just not super conducive to get to with the tools that I brought over here. So we'll get these ones out that I can reach, and then we'll go ahead and get the other tools, get those ones out, and then we'll separate the pad from the dash. Yeah, there are 3 more nuts up underneath here to go ahead and pull from. All right, got my extension. We'll go ahead and get these last 3 removed and see if there's anything else that I missed. It has been over a decade since the last time I pulled one of these apart. All right, let's see if it separates. All right, and just like that, the frame's by itself. All right, that's how you separate a dash pad from the dash frame and do the complete disassembly of the dash. So we're gonna go ahead, take this one down, get it swapped out for a new one from the Mopar shop, Mopar Ed. I've been doing business with him for literally probably 20 years now with all the classic Mopars. Great resource out here on the West Coast. He's easy to find at all the local Mopar events, and he's who I'm gonna be getting my new dash pad from. So I'm excited for that. We'll look forward to that in a future video once I go pick that up. This way we're gonna take the old one down to them to avoid I think they're a $200 core charge now for these old dash pads. So that's today's video. I hope you found it entertaining and useful, informational as always. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button, give us a thumbs up, helps out with that YouTube algorithm. And as always guys, if you want to be kept up to date on my future uploads, because I know you're going to want to be following what I do with this dash and the new instrument cluster and stuff for the Challenger. We've got a lot of exciting projects in the works for this car. And so don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below and ring that notification bell as well. And I will see you guys the next video.